Good morning and welcome to the Rewind Show. Sunday Supplement 231. I'm Steve Brown, and over there, manager of Boro, is Brent Peters. How are you diddling?
I'm all right, Steve. I'm all right. Bit better than last Sunday morning after Saturday, but what a difference a week makes. Never mind a day.
Yeah. I thought you were going to break into song there.
Really.
But yeah, what a difference a day makes, and what a difference it makes when you've got, I'm not going to say 11, I'm going to say a full squad of players willing to put the hard graft in, because that's what yesterday was all about.
Well, I'm going to go one further than that, Steve, because I'm going to go not just the players that the squad putting the hard graft in. I'm going to go the squad and put a full stop at the back of it, because it was great to see. You know, I know there were other lads who'd have been at the game, but they were representing the shadow squad that played up at Ashton Athletic. But the ones who were injured, who obviously couldn't represent the shadow squad and couldn't represent, the first team, such as Alex Mellor and Tyler Williams, were both attending the game at Glossop. And I just think that, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, so unless you've been there, unless you've been in, when you're injured, you're on the outside, and it guts you when the lads put in a good, gritty, determined performance and get what they're just rewards, but you're not a part of it. But really, they are a part of it, and the fact is that. To see Alex Mellor, who's been, it's been really frustrating for him, and he's getting intense treatment now, and hopefully he'll be back very, very soon, in contention, and Tyler Williams, who's been, who's done really, really well in pre-season, worked hard, done well in the games, gives the team another dimension. It was good again to see him up at Glossop. They don't need to be there, but it just shows what they're about and what this set of lads are about.
Yeah, it just shows the attitude and the professionalism about those types of players.
100%, yeah, 100%. And that were, it were really good. It were really pleasing, and it were also pleasing. Listen, it's. It's my former club, is Glossop. I mean, everybody, people, if they don't look back in the archives about the history of Boro, and they don't look back in the archives and the history and where Brent Peters has been, people just think because I've been at Boro so long, I've not been anywhere else. But Glossop North End was one of my first clubs, and thankfully I did a season there, and I brought them some silverware, and it was good to see yesterday, up at Glossop. It's well known fact that I took a lot of former Rosendale United players over to Derbyshire, and they spent a season there. The likes of Wayne Howarth, Liam Boardman, Russell Proctor, Simon Oldham went with me on the management team. Players of Andrew Warrensby, Alan Livesey, the late Andy Wharton, who former Burnley player. All travelled over and all went over. There were more. I'm just it's a live show, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But it was good to see that Liam Boardman return yesterday, because of nostalgia, and obviously to support
Wayne was there, I believe.
Yeah. But Wayne was there, my captain. So Wayne Howarth had travelled over as well from Rosendale, and it brought back memories. And I've got to say this, that when I went on the pitch, before the lads had come out of the changing rooms to do the warm up, I just walked across the pitch, and I was, just taking everything in, and it were a bit emotional. Not because of my time there and what we achieved, and there were great times at Glossop. I really, really enjoyed my time at Glossop. It's just something about. It's funny because we were talking to Liam Liam Boardman after going to the car, and he said, there isn't probably a day goes by in his household where Glossop's not mentioned. Yeah. And it's funny that.
And you're the same, Brent, because since we've known each other, which is like nearly 7 years, you always talk about Glossop North End fondly.
Oh yeah. I don't know what it is. It's just crazy. I think it were because it were.
It's just in there, isn't it?
It's just there. It's just there. Everything about it, and even going back. And the thing why I got a bit emotional, and I did get emotional. I'll be honest, but the emotion weren't because of probably just my time at Glossop.
No.
My dad followed me wherever I went, and my dad followed me. Obviously followed me to Glossop, but he got hooked on Glossop as well. And when I left Glossop and went back to Boro, my dad stayed. My dad stayed for 2 years and was travelling. He was travelling over from Rosendale, and then it ended up being the coach driver. He was driving the coach.
So he was that connected, and that he loved Glossop North End that much.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and and he was, he stayed there, and 2 years after I'd left, he stayed at Glossop. And he was travelling, and as I went married,
that's probably where the memories come. That's where probably the nostalgia and the memories came flooding back, Brent, when you were on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I made no bones about it. It got a grip of me a little bit, but I think that was because of my father more than me. Yeah. Just thinking about my dad, and my late father, and the memories. Yeah, because. He stayed on, and and he got on well with the manager that took over after me, which I apologise because at the minute my head's frazzled a little bit and I can't remember. It's on tip of my tongue. Former Droylsden manager, but they were great. They were great times, and it was it were like. We had success. There were crazy times. I mean, there's always stories to tell about Glossop. It was great to see Peter Hammond yesterday, and the current chairman now, who obviously wasn't the infamous chairman when I were there, but he loves that story about when I arrived and I saw the pitch were full of, it were all yellow. We arrived and it were
daisies and things, and what they call them, dandelions.
Dandelions. It were full, and I'm looking through the fence and I'm like, blinking it. Look at the state of this pitch. And then I saw Peter and I went, Peter, have you seen the state of this pitch? He said, what's up with it? I said, it's full of dandelions. He said, what did you want? Fucking tulips.
But when you look at Surrey Street, when you look at the ground, and it's a proper non-league ground, you can't help but fall in love with it.
No, everything about it, and the town, and I mean, okay, there were a few on yesterday, but they were nothing like the gates we were getting when I were there. They were fantastic gates. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Listen, I'm not here to knock. I mean, we haven't even got a facility at the minute, have we?
No.
So I'm not here to knock anything. But the pitch weren't the best yesterday. But
no.
It weren't the best. There hardly any grass on it.
Yeah, for the start of the season.
Yeah, it wasn't good. They've obviously had issues and things, but it is what it is. But the actual club and the actual facilities and it just grabs you. Well, it grabs me, and it obviously talking to Liam after it kind of grabs Liam as well. And I haven't spoke to Wayne. I didn't see Wayne, but obviously I got told that Wayne were there. Well,
he put something on social media about, I think it was something along the lines of, great to be back at Glossop where I played under Brent. We had some good times and good memories.
Yeah, they were, embargoes in the FA Vase. There's loads of tales. I could sit on here and fill the show with
you turning up on the first match with one of your vans and opening the back doors and about 7 players getting out the back.
Yeah, the very first time, I had a furniture.
They must have thought, who the flipping heck have we signed here?
Well, I had a furniture removal and storage business and had several vans, and because there were a lot of us going over from from Rosendale. And there were no motorways in them days. You know, the motorways, you to go through the town. So, so it were a road trip. You know, you went, you went Rochdale, into Oldham, into Ashton, into Stalybridge, and then into Mottram, and then into Glossop. You know, that were it. It were a road trip. There were no motorway. That were the trip. Yeah. So we all piled in all the rosin. I said, well, we'll save money on the petrol. We'll all get in the removal van and get in the back. Not thinking that the floorboards and diesel fumes and everything else would be coming through. So we got out to Third Street. They were sat out, we put some chairs in to try and make them comfortable. They were playing cards out where there. But the thing were, there were fumes coming up through, the diesel fumes coming through the floorboards in the back. So straight away, they've got out and they were blinking high as a kite. But I just think like little things like that adds to it. That adds to it. Yeah. It were good. And then, we ended up with an FA Vase embargo. We were embargoed for weeks in the FA. The FA Vase has been a special cup for Glossop. As you know, we're 10 years. Somebody reminded me it was 10 years to this year. I think we had the chat. It was 10-year anniversary since that narrow 2-1 defeat against North Shields. In the final at Wembley. But they've been to 2 finals. Yeah. So it's in the DNA. And even when I was there, we had an excellent Vase run. We came in at the extra preliminary round and went right the way through and just failed to get to the last 16. So we'd actually played more games than, the clubs that come in later that qualify. You would have played about 7 or 8 games, Brent, to get to that stage. Yeah, exactly. But we ended up getting an embargo, but that was because at the time I signed Andy Gorton, goalkeeper, from Lincoln City, and he was under offer. And anybody who doesn't know, I'll explain. So what happens is, you were on the PFA list, and they wanted a fee for him. He was under offer, but we could speak to him. But when this under offer, how that works is you can speak to the player. There's no problem there, but the player can even come and train with you. But if you play him in a competitive match and you haven't agreed a fee, there's no fee been agreed. It has to go to a tribunal, and if whatever figure the tribunal set, you have to pay because he's played a game. Yeah. If he trains with you and doesn't play in a competitive match and it goes to a tribunal, you could still kind of walk away from the deal. But wasn't this the deal that Lincoln were after 10 grand and you said take it to tribunal because it'll definitely be less than that? Yeah, that's it. So Lincoln, this is what I'm saying. Yeah, so Lincoln had put a figure of £10,000 on him, and I said to the chairman at the time, Lincoln want £10,000. Yeah. So I explained to the chairman what the procedure is. So I'll get him in here. We'll get him in. Just play him. Anyway, it goes to the tribunal. I represented Glossop at the tribunal. Graham Taylor, then, who were chairman of the PFA, he was actually chaired the tribunal, and they ruled that at the end of it, that Glossop had to pay Lincoln City £3 grand. Yeah. So they were due to pay £3 grand, but the £3 grand weren't forthcoming. They never paid it. Never got there. So Lincoln obviously put a complaint in. So we were embargoed. They wouldn't let us play until this money were paid. But there's tales even with that. I were telling briefly yesterday, because I was going mad and I kept saying to the chairman, "Come on, this is ridiculous. We've another Vase game due in 2 weeks' time. You've got to pay this, Mr. Chairman." And he used to say to me, "Brent, you're here to sort the football out. I'm here to sort the business. Leave me to the business. You do the football." "Right, Mr. Chairman, okay, no problem." So next thing that happens, he rings me up on this day. He said, "You'll be pleased to know that me and Andrew Gorton are going on a road trip today to Lincoln. We've got the money. We're travelling over to Lincoln." Right, that's good to know. So I'm thinking, great, Lincoln at last, we're going to pay this money. You wouldn't believe that about mid-morning, I get this phone call from Andrew Gorton. And he says, "This is how it goes. Brent," he said, "we're travelling over at Snake Pass." He said, "What a calamity we've had today." He said, "We've broke down, we've had to pull in at the side, and we've gone to try and we've set off walking to find a phone so we can, because obviously in them days, the mobile phones were like, you have to find a phone box. There were no mobile phones." So he said, we set off walking. We got back. We've got back to the car, to get recovery. We've got back to the car. You won't believe it. The bloody money's gone. I went, "You're joking." He went, "I'm not joking. The money's gone." Well, the top and bottom of it is, it was just a blinking load of rubbish. It was just another thing. It was just a bleeding fairy tale. They never. Anyway, eventually the embargo were lifted and it were paid. But yeah, there's loads of tales to tell about it. But there were good times. There were good times, and it's a good club, and it's a special club in my heart. So
let's move on to the football action, because that'll probably live in your mind for quite some time, because I think the word I used a lot during that game, or at the latter stage of the game, were perseverance. And they showed a lot of perseverance yesterday, just to keep going, keep believing in the process, keep knocking on the door. And eventually it came.
Yes, it's like any football match, isn't it? It's never over until the fat lady sings. I mean, it's funny that I know I'm just going to slightly go off yesterday's game just for a second. When you look at some of the FA Cup results from the week before, I mean, one from our nearest rivals, Ramsbottom, who ended up going to a replay, I think, with Silsden.
Yeah.
And Ramsbottom were winning going into the 90th minute. I think they had a 2-goal cushion and ended up going out and losing. In the injury time, they scored 2 goals to get up to equaliser, and then gone to penalties and gone out on penalties. So, if we flick that to the Glossop game yesterday, a similar situation occurred. If I analyse the old game, was I ever feeling uneasy, stunning the technical area? Never once were I feeling uneasy. I thought we were always in It was difficult for us because, listen, I'm not making no excuses here. I'm just saying as it is. The pitch was not good. It wasn't conducive. There was one bounce hit the ground, if you remember, in the first half, and it's thinking done Billy, but Billy's made an absolute fantastic save and tipped it over the bar. But that's not come from a player's boot. That's come from it's hit a blinking lump on the, and it's flicked up. So the pitch was. But the old saying, it's the same for both sides.
Yeah.
But the way that we set up and the way that they set up and the way that we like to play, they'd watched us at Atherton Alar. I'd seen the guys there at Atherton Alar, so they knew where we were. But I keep saying it all the time. It's why worry about the opposition? It's not about the opposition. It's always about you. It's about if you believe in your team and the way you set up and the way they've been drilled to play. It's all about you. Don't worry about the opposition. The opposition, if your lads turn up and conduct themselves the way that they've been drilled to conduct themselves, right, then it's game on. And you hope that you're going to win more games than you lose.
Yeah.
So I'm not one for really worrying about the opposition, especially in non-league football, because you can go and watch the opposition and you get the team sheet and you come to Saturday when you're playing them and there's 4 different players playing.
Yeah.
It all changes. So, but the fact of the matter were they'd watched us, so they knew basically how we were probably going to go and line up in this game. But the difficult part were we couldn't. It's kind of a weird pitch is Glossop. It's not really. Doesn't ever seem to be an overly big pitch. You know where I'm coming from.
It's not wide, is it?
It's not wide. It's kind of a tight pitch for me, and so we like to go. As you know, we like to go down, get it down, and play. And when we start to play, we're good to watch. It's good on the eye. Unfortunately, that situation, they nullified that. So we didn't, we talked about it at half time. We didn't kind of change things. We needed to change things a little bit. But what were happening is the balls were going long all the time. Even the kicks from Billy were going long. The big problem we had with that, they were soaking that up because we were never going to win. We were never going to win that. It was never going to happen. We haven't got the players. If you think about the players that we've got in the team on aerial presence, we have nobody. In theory, yesterday, the only person that had come near winning any aerial presence around the midfield area would have been Brady. But where Brady were playing, he was kind of on the outside.
Yeah.
So, in some respects, what should have really happened on certain kicks is that maybe very, very quickly there's a swap with a central midfield player going out wide and Brady coming in to help with the kick, help with the flick-ons. And it's no surprise that the equaliser we get is come from a centre half that's actually in a midfield area that's done the flick-on that we've got in behind and scored the equaliser. So consequently, balls are going long, so it's frustrating. And then we weren't picking second balls up. If the balls are going long, right, and then they're winning the headers, it's important then that we jump on the second balls.
Yeah, to pick the pieces up.
Pick the pieces up, and kind of we weren't doing that. So really, it was just a bit, from our point of view, and even from the Glossop probably point of view, the game seemed a bit kind of scrappy, if you will. There was not, if that's the better word I can use, but there were things happened that, like, I'll come back to one instance, and it was something that I did mention and bring up at half time, is the fact that, like, we got a free kick, and I remember it, Tomo's on and he set up, so you can tell what's going to happen just by body language, how he sets the free kick up. So he sets the free kick up, right? Everybody's pushed forward. So if everybody's pushed forward, right, it's pretty damn obvious that he's going to knock a long ball into the area, or he's going to knock it diag and he's going to go out wide with it, right? Now, on this particular free kick, what I'm talking about, he knocked a diag and he gave it to them. So we're on the back foot. He gave it away from our free kick. Now, my point is, because we're kind of a footballing side, it's all right going long and setting up for the free kick, but very, very quickly, somebody, i.e. a Michael Gervin, has got to drop in and try and get on the ball and demand it. So you set up to go, so they're defending, so you set up to go long, but then somebody very quickly drops off and have the kind of balls, if you will, to give it him. Right, and then you can start to make play, because what happens then is they've got to come out, the gaps appear, and you can start playing football. And we've got good players who are technically very, very good, but they nullified the space quite well. So we struggled to do that, and it's not because we played bad. We didn't play bad. We played well. We were comfortable, but we played well, but limited, if that makes sense. We were limited in what we could do, but that. You've got to give Glossop a bit of credit there, because they were nullifying them spaces that we couldn't really hurt them. So it was kind of a nip and tuck game. There was nothing. It was
a close game.
It was a close game. It was nothing. And did I see them kind of, scoring? I thought, well, if they score, it's going to come from a bit of stroke of unluckiness, bad luck, a bad deflection that runs in the path,
or a bit of fortune for them, and that's how it occurred.
That's how it panned out, and that's how it occurred. But the issue were, it was late on in the game as well, and you think, have we got enough time to come back? Have we got enough time to come back in this? And it's at that point, I mean, Nigel came to me because the game were tight. This is what I mean about managing games of football. Games of football, you can have talent on the bench, but some games, when it's a tight game, isn't always on to make the subs.
No,
because it's a tight game, and it can sometimes take a sub 10 minutes to pick the pace of the game up and get into it, right? And just not long after half time, I remember Nigel came and what you thinking? And I said to him, I'm not thinking anything at the minute, because I were quite comfortable in where we were playing. I thought, we'll keep knocking here, we'll get something. If we
and
get
you're kind of looking at the game, Brent, or the way I was looking at the game was, I'm thinking all along, there's one goal in this game.
Yeah, I'd agree. And that's the way it worked. But I didn't really want to make, at this point, I didn't want to make a, because I thought we were doing all right. If we weren't doing all right, it's different. But we were doing all right. We were defending well.
Very well.
Everybody were on top. I mean, in the early part of the game, I mean, Paul, probably because he's on his wrong foot, he got caught a couple of times early doors. Yeah. But that were only because he were a bit blasé. He believes in his ability. He's good on the ball and he's strong, but he needed to tighten up because he got his pocket pinched a couple of times early doors.
That wasn't the pitch to start thinking you're Franco Baresi.
No, exactly. But we did tighten up and did. But in the main, you know, I thought the lads at the back were doing well. I thought Billy were different class.
Yeah.
You know, let's just talk about this a second here now, because in any, you know, we can't go and talk about how the season's going to unfold, but in any team, you know, the aspires to do well in a game of football, the lads, you have to have belief in the lad that's between the sticks. You have to have that belief.
Absolutely.
And Billy's a top goalkeeper. Let's not make no mistake about that. Yeah, he's a young lad. Yeah. Yes, he'll make some wrong decisions, but he makes some very few wrong decisions. He's very, very good. And yesterday, you know, even when they were directing headers into him, and things like that, he was there behind him. He read them, and they were going into his hands, and you know, and then he were making play. His reactions on his saves. I mean, even that one in the first half. Yeah, in the first half where the pitch has blinking done him. You know, lesser goalkeeper, that's in. Yeah. You know,
if you've not got good agility, you're not saving that.
You're not saving it, no. And he was. You know, he was.
And then there was another top class save in the second half that was going for because at the far end, the goals are slightly slanted.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And when they took the free kick, the number 9 who scored the goal, he knew what he was doing, and it was going for that top corner. And Billy got across and pulled off a fantastic save.
Yeah. He you know, he had a terrific game, did Billy. You know, some people don't like giving goalkeepers man. I gave him man of match for me, and some people don't like giving goalkeepers man of match because it sounds like you're under the cosh. We weren't under the cosh, but everything that Billy did or had to do,
we were assured, weren't he?
He was assured. He was on top of his game massively, and you need that, and your defenders need that. You know, they need to know that and be reassured. And you know, the fact that. He were on top of his game. He were brilliant, and the lads at the back, then, you know, as a unit, you know, all of them, you know, Joy, you know, Paul Shalobi and Dom's come in. You know, they did very, very well. They were assured. They were talking. There were a belief between them all. You know, the communication were good. You know. Leadership were good. Being positive was good. Everything was good.
Let's not forget as well, Brent. This is our first competitive game of the season.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the things, you know, listen, again, what was said in the changing room was, from myself, well, you've got to look at it this way. The pressure is on. We've got no pressure. We're coming here today. We haven't been playing. Listen, we haven't been playing competitive. When I say they've had what 4 weeks,
6 games, yeah.
They've had 6 games, competitive matches, so they're ahead of us by that, right? On top of that, they're they've been they're a division above us.
Yeah.
Right? They're not from our division. They're a division above us. Not a league above us, a division above us. They're a Premier League side. Right? Not only that, we're playing away from home. So they're on their own ground in front of their own fans. Right? So everything, we've gone there yesterday, really against all odds. Everything was stacked against us. It's our first game. We haven't played, what is it, 8 week, 9 week, maybe 10 week. I think Ryan said 10 week when we started pre-season. So consequently, we've been playing games, but nothing like,
nothing
what they've
with that
been
intensity.
Exactly. But this brings me again to the credit to the players that's the majority, because they haven't all been there at all the sessions. And we had this talk last week. It is important that players have to make sure they're at training. I know it can be difficult, but they have to be there and make sure, because it's really important, because training isn't a bag of balls and we'll just have a game. There's a means to an end.
Yeah. And
there's a means to trying to get, so from Ryan Russell, who's the fitness coach, to Nigel, who's kind of the head of the coaches, and then Alan, who's the technical coach. Everybody's got their niche responsibilities, is what I'm saying. So between the three of them, they plan the sessions. Ryan has them at the beginning to do fitness, a little bit of fitness, and then it goes into the next phase, which is where we Alan on technical and Nigel. So they kind of sort all that out within the team shape that we're going to implement. Now, that doesn't mean to say, if you think about go back on the pre-season games, another thing that was mentioned last week, we've played different shapes with different personnel in it, because this 10-week break, it's give us the chance to do that. So it's give us the chance to have a look at something in a out of the competitiveness, if you will, so where the results don't matter. So if you're taking a chance on something and it goes pear-shaped and belly up,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. So we've been allowed to do that, and what that's done, it's formulated a picture on where we think, and then what's happened with myself before the Atherton game was the most important game, right, of all the pre-season, because that was the final game before we were kicking off, right? So it was the most important game, and we knew that Atherton, right, would go fairly strong with us, and they did go strong. Listen, yeah, they had some other fringe players in. That's not a problem. We had some of our fringe players in. It's not an issue. But we knew how they played. We knew how they'd line up, and then we knew they'd give us a good test, and it was a great test. And I've got to make a special. I've got to say this about Atherton Allier. I mean, just digressing a little bit. I'd like to thank David Jones and the committee of Atherton Allier. I mean, not only for the game, because they've helped us, because that was the reason to get the game, because it was to help us more than it helped them. Although we're going to give them a competitor, and the game we're only going to go ahead if they got through in the FA Cup, right? Which they did. But also they made a kind gesture, because normally what would happen is they didn't charge on the gate. No. And when teams don't charge on the gate, both teams both clubs contribute to the cost of the officials.
Yeah.
And when I went to David and said, like, how much do I owe for our contribution, they wouldn't take anything off me, because they knew the what's going on at Bay Cup. They know fully what's going on at Bay Cup. They know fully that the finances are a bit tight at the minute because we haven't had any income, and they won't take a penny off us.
Bit of class there.
So it just shows what a classic club, they are, and a top manager, and a good manager. So we're grateful for that, really grateful. But yeah, so going back to what I was saying is that was massively important, that game, massively. And no matter what had gone on the games before where we've played, different other shapes, what you've got to look at is, and then what I did, I went back through all the shapes, I went back through all the stats, I went back through the games that we played. And for me, the pick of the games that we played, in my opinion, and the coaches were in agreement because I discussed things with them, without a shadow of a doubt, with the Chadderton game, that Chadderton were strong against us, and we did really well against Chadderton, and even our fans had turned up at Chadderton, whereas, and they were really, it would go on the eye what they
enjoyed that one.
They enjoyed it, so I kind of felt that we needed to, put that back into action again against Atherton LR. And let's have a look at it again against another, don't forget the last time we went to Atherton LR, not many weeks ago, we got a right trouncing.
Got his arses handed to us.
Exactly. We got a right trouncing, and we had a player coming off in first 10, 15 minutes saying to a coach, I can't be running around chasing players. Can we not play Mark Zonal? It did my head in that, but anyway, that's gone. So anyway, so the fact of the matter were, we looked at it again, and again it came out. It kind of, we were pleased with everything we saw. So for me, it was no brainer on Saturday.
Yeah.
By introducing and going the way that we went, and obviously the lads seemed to enjoy it, and were fully concentrated. They knew what they had to do, and in every department, and I felt that they did it admirably. And like I said, from start to finish, I kind of never, you stand in a technical area sometimes, and you think we're losing this, we're losing it, we're losing the battle, we're second best. But I never felt that. I felt comfortable all the time, and even when they scored,
go on, you carry on.
Even when they scored, I still felt that we'd have something. But that's when, at that point, that's where we all come in, because immediately we lost that goal. I immediately got. We can't all be in the technical area, because the Northwest counties have this rule that you can all, even though there's 11 seats, you can't have everybody in the technical area. Northwest counties will limit it to 8. So by time you've got your 5 subs, and you've got your manager, and you've got your one of the coaches, and you've got your physio, that's your 8. So we can't get our technical coach in the area, but it's important he stands near us. So Alan was stood to my left shoulder, right? So it was easy for me to keep talking to Alan, as well as Nigel. So I've got Alan on my left shoulder, right? And I've got Nigel in the technically. So straight away, Nigel's come to me early doors and gone just after half time and kind of think, what you're thinking? And I said, at that point, I'm not thinking anything, because it's too tight of a game. I didn't want to make no substitution while it were tight. Everybody were focused. Everybody were doing all right. No, there were no issues, none whatsoever, right? We needed a break. We needed to stay concentrated at the back. We needed Billy on top of his game, which he were. Midfield were doing all right. They were competing, but we weren't getting that final break, the final ball to feed one of the front lads. It wasn't coming, but I knew that at some point it may come. Right, so I didn't want to do anything at that point. But the way we set up, as soon as we lost a goal, which we did, something had to change then, because we're chasing a game. So that's when you have to decide. So very, very quickly, as soon as we lost the goal, I knew I wanted to make the change. It was just who we were going to make the change personnel with. Now, the person that I kind of said, so I turned to Alan and I've gone, I'm going to make the change now. We've got to do because we're chasing the game. Yeah. What you're thinking? So he said to me, "What you're thinking?" And the person I were picking, and he had a point here. The person I were picking was going to be Jack originally, but he had a point because he went, and then it brought this is what I mean about where we talk and liaise, because it brought it back to me. Because if you remember a couple of shows ago, I were playing heck about, I'm strung out like a washing line up front.
Yeah.
Remember? Right? So he brought it back to me when they're very similar. So if you bring Jack on, they're all very much of a muchness. Maybe Liam. So I thought, it's not a bad shout that, because
a bit of muscle.
Because a bit of muscle. So I kind of like, right, yeah, that's not a bad shout. So we made the substitution, and I said to Liam, listen, I don't want you running in channels. I don't want you going. I need you to occupy them two centre halves.
Yeah.
Stay down the middle. Just occupy them. Just keep them occupied. Because if he keeps them occupied, the others have got a chance to get in.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of, so that were positive. Again, it wasn't done purely just by me. It was assisted by our coaches. That's what it's about, you know. Right. So we did that. So that was the first one. So that was working all right. And then, you know, he called me over. The next one, he called me over, and there was a period where kind of the lad in you don't know what you're saying, right things on this show at times with this.
It was the
midfield, the number four. Yeah, but they were. So he was kind of getting, for the first time in the game, he was kind of getting the better of Michael Gervin for the first time, which obviously spelt that Michael was tiring.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a signal then straight away for Callum. Again, we discussed it. Yeah, we were always going to do that. You know, Michael, it was a toss up whether it was a straight swap for young Jacob, who's just come in, who's done well for us since we signed him.
Yeah,
he's done well. So whether it was a straight swap for Jacob and Callum, or whether we took off Michael, but Michael would get in, as it was pointed out to me. You know, he's getting the better a little bit now of Michael. So we took Michael off. That's the reason he'd done his bit. So we took Michael off. And then the final one, Jack eventually came on, and we took Tom off and put him on wide. So we're kind of asking questions with the subs. But what I'm trying to get at here is, it changed when we went to goal down. If we hadn't gone to goal down, I don't think there would have been, unless somebody were injured or struggling, or
there'd have been no need to make a substitution.
There wouldn't have been any need, but there were a need, because obviously we're now chasing a game. And from that situation, you know, all in all, you know, we've seen what happened. You know, you never say die attitude. Paul Shalhoub high up the pitch in that situation. He's got a ball. He's done a flick on. Cal Sidol's continued his run, read the situation, got in behind and finished it perfectly. You know, and that were how we just reward it. It were a relief, and you know, it was fantastic. Really, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, and that. It couldn't have come at a better time, because I think the referee just blew seconds after.
Well, before we continue, just anyone who weren't tuned in yesterday, this is what it sounded like in real time.
Back to Billy Blake. It needs to go long, Billy. It needs to go long. We haven't got time to mess around. He rolls it out. It needs to be kicked out of his hands. It long. Shalobi. Is there a chance? Oh, Boro! Boro have equalised with seconds to go. Billy Blake hitting the ball long. Shalobi with a flick on. And it's Kyle Siddle who slots it into the bottom left-hand corner. And with a matter of seconds on the clock, Boro have got an equaliser. Billy Blake was hanging on to it too long, but he went long in the end as he rolled it out towards beyond his 18-yard box, and he's hit it straight down the middle of the park. It was flicked on by Paul Shalobe. And Kyle Siddle has managed to get himself on the end of that and get Boro level. We just needed that little bit of fortune, and the lads just kept on knocking on the door. And they can't be long left now. The perseverance from Boro this afternoon, they kept on knocking, they kept on coming, and I've got to say, they've got their just reward.
And they got their just rewards. Exactly how I said it, I think.
Listen, I've just got to say something here now. I mean, you know, it's easy on this. It's easy for me on the show. You know, I kind of try to be fair as much as I can be. I'll tell the truth, whether somebody likes to hear it and doesn't like to hear it really, because it's aimed at or it's getting at a certain person. But I'll also tell the truth if it's a positive. And I always believe that people, you know, if they take the positive and like the positives, they've got to take the negatives as well a little bit if a negative comes, you know. And I don't often listen to the core comms because I haven't got time, and it's just, and I don't mean this disrespectful. It's media to me, so you know, even the national newspapers, I think, you know, I keep telling Brian, stop buying that Sun. It's a blinking load of rubbish. They just tell lies.
It's just there, just noise.
It's just, yeah. So, but I've got to say this, and in the past, I have not, you know, your core commentators, when I've listened to it, I've thought they've been blinking, you know, shambolic in some of the things they come out with. But you know what? I sat at home last night and I played that back, and I've just listened to it again now, and I've got to give you a load of credit here, Steve, because you know, for anybody sat at home, if you were to tune in, if you see, you know, a big European night and you tune into 5 Live, right, and you listen to these top commentators on BBC 5 Live, and you're not at the game, they do bring that atmosphere to your door by the way that the voice is, the way that they, you know, it's an up and a down voice, and you know how it executes the finish and everything else, and it's magic, and you're part of it. You know that something's happening, and I've got to say, when you listen to that clip there, that was fantastic. There's nobody better, Steve. That was something else, because you brought, for those who were unfortunate that couldn't be there, or sat on Bermuda Beach, you know, or in Turkey buying teeth, and you know, and stuff like that. You know,
buying teeth.
That's you know what I'm trying to say. That's absolutely fantastic, because you brought the atmosphere, the build up, the atmosphere. You even talked about Billy needs to get it up. You know, you felt that you were there. You felt the atmosphere.
There was something happening.
Yeah. So you know, that commentary was on par with the best, in my opinion, and I've got to give that credit to you. You know, it was fantastic, and you know, sorry, Carl, if I'm taking a bit of gloss off your finish, but I think Steve needs a bit of praise on that one. But yeah. Carl's finish, calm, collected, read the situation. You know, Paul Shalobe's header flick on. You know, fantastic. That's what we needed, and we had players that got in behind.
And Billy Blake with you know, the precision of putting the ball right onto Paul's head.
Exactly. So the lads got the just reward. You know, if we'd have lost, even if we'd have lost that game, it wouldn't have changed the team talk, in my opinion.
There were loads of positives to take, because, even with that defeat yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. It would have been a cruel blow, because they deserved something out of it, and at the end of it, they got something out of it, which then takes us to, you know, the dreaded lottery, the dreaded penalties. But do you know what? You know, I've got to say this. You know, sometimes I prance up and down and I don't look, and I won't look, and I watched every one of them penalties yesterday, because I believed in every one of them who were taking it, and I stood in the middle with Nigel when Nigel were, and it weren't the case. Brian White asked the question, and he said, "Do you pick who's taking them?" Well, no, we don't. We ask the question, who wants them. That's the first thing we do. We say, and they're volunteering. They're coming up. Well, I'll go here, and I'll go there. I'll take this, and you look at it, because even on the bench, we'd done 2 substitutions. Well, we've done 3 substitutions, and one of them is definitely
two of
them are definitely penalty takers.
Yeah.
But the lads, Callum, Ollie, Liam, and Callum, the penalties were quality. Every one of them, not phased, not. I mean, I'll give a special mention as well to Callum, because he's had his issues. He's had his issues in pre-season in terms of, hasn't been as many pre-season training sessions as I would have liked, being a very important player to us, and he's carried a couple of injuries, and again, he's missed some games that I felt that he should have been taking part in. But if you've got an injury and you've got a niggle, then I suppose you can't take part in them. But that knocks you back, because, especially, like I said, a week's a long time in football, and when you've got the likes, if you make a signing, and not only the lads that we've already got here that's challenging for central midfield places, but then you make a signing as we've made in Jacob Armrod, and he's picked the baton up and done well and ran with it. And I've seen all his stats. I mean, his running stats, and from what he does, he's a naturally fit lad. He competes, and then it kind of puts you on the back foot. Then you kind of second. All of a sudden, from being a regular in the team, you lose your place, and this is what players have got to realise. It's no good playing with injuries and trying to get through it, because you'll get caught out then, because you set the bar and you'll be underachieving, so you get caught out that way, and it's no good. If you have got an injury and you are honest and you are truthful, well, it's part and parcel of the game. It's just one of them things. You've got to set out. You've got to get yourself fit. And if the lad comes in who's doing well in your place, then you've got to wait for the opportunity to get your place back again. That's the way it goes. I mean, don't forget, we've had a good result there on Saturday at Glossop. But to come back into the team, who'll be competing. I mean, think about the lads that were over. I mean, they're not ready yet, but think of the lads that went with Toby Wright. I mean, that a special mention I'll give here as well of Toby Wright, because Toby came back off his holidays this week. He's had 1 training session. That's his first training session he's had for weeks, because before he went away, he was injured. So he hasn't trained. He's come back. He's trained, but he broke down in the training. He didn't get through all the training. I asked him to take our shadow squad over to Ashton Athletic, which he more than readily agreed, because I thought he was the man to do that as a he's an intelligent lad. He's Toby. He's a good lad. He's a
senior first team player.
He's a senior first team player, and he took the lads over to Ashton Athletic, the shadow squad. So I'm pleased about that. That just shows that some players, it's not for me, but Toby were ready. He picked the baton up and said, "Yeah, I'm gonna take him."
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that when you think about it, eventually at some point Toby will be fit. He's not available next week, but he's injured anyway. But then you've got Connor Morris got to come back. You've got Mason Fallon that played over at Ashton yesterday. You've got Malachi Clark played at Ashton. You know, you've got Jack Parker who didn't actually make the first team squad, and he was really unlucky. Let me tell you, Jack Parker was unlucky to have been omitted from the, because I think he's had a quite a decent pre-season, and also young Will. He's another one that we're probably unlucky because he's had a decent pre-season and done well. You know, so you know, there's players that and then we've got to look at, you know, Tyler Williams is going to be coming knocking on the door. He'll probably be over his injury in the next game. So what I'm trying to get at is these lads don't want to be given the opportunity up through either missing training or training and getting a knock in training and having a setback or whatever, because there's lads at the minute, good lads, ready to come in. But the simple fact is, you know, these lads did well on Saturday. And in all fairness, they'll be going again next Saturday. That's the way it's got to be. You know, I don't see any, you know, other players have got to just be, you know, and the way they'll build the fitness up and the way they'll match sharpness and everything is they'll go and play in the shadow squad and wait for their opportunity. But that's what will see us through the season. It's no good players. It's no good for me. I'm leaving because I'm guaranteed a place somewhere else. No, you know, if you want to be successful and come the business end of the season, you're not going to be successful if you're at a club what guarantees you a place just to play football. You're not going to be successful. You know, if you're at a club where, I'm telling you, Allerton Alloy won the league last year, but they didn't win the league with 15 players.
No.
You know, they had good strength in depth. They had 2 players for every position. And that's how it's got to be. So, you know, again, this is why I mentioned the Callum situation there, because unfortunately, you know, because of Callum's situation in pre-season, he's found himself starting on the bench at Glossop.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. And a lad who's only just come to the club has stepped in. But he's been at more training. He's done well while he's been there. And, you know, Callum hadn't even proved his fitness. But, you know, but he stepped up. He come off the bench yesterday, played his part, and he stepped up and took a penalty. And his penalty finish was like Liam's was, like Ollie's was, like Carl's was, admirably finished.
But you mentioned the player earlier, Brent, and it's only one we've only seen him for 2 games now, and that's Jacob Ormrod. And he played against LR, and he got straight into your plans because he's a player with a lot of ability. Yeah,
he's a good lad. You know, I mean, but he has to keep that up. He can't rest on his laurels. Well, you know, he's got to play at the top of his game. What I saw, not only did I see that, you know, Atherton, he played in the game at Radcliffe. Now, some people didn't go to the Radcliffe game and didn't even watch the Radcliffe game. But he played in midfield at Radcliffe, did really, really well, was well impressed with him. We continued that where he played against Atherton. Again, really, really impressed with him. And that's why he got the nod. This is why I'm trying to say that, you know, we can't help injuries, you know. And if you're not fully fit, you've got to be open. It's an open book. You've got to talk to me and you've got to tell me. You cannot try to blag it through, because when you set the bar and you drop below that level, there's a reason why you're dropping below. And, you know, first thing is, if I don't know you've got an injury, I'm going to say, why is he dropped to that level? You know, there's got to be a reason, because, you know, everybody can have good games and have bad games, but there's always got to be a reason why you're struggling, why you're not at your peak, at your full fitness or whatever. And that's when questions are asked. When every time we put a team out there, I expect, this is me, my expectations, I expect every player to be playing at the top of the game, because if every player plays at top of the game, we will get through that game positively. If certain players are underachieving because they've decided to go out the night before and get in at 2:00 in the morning, they're still under the influence of blinking the night before, or if certain players are carrying an injury and they're not being truthful and honest, and they've got a niggle and it's affecting them, then they're underachieving. And because they're underachieving, if they've been selected, the team is then all of a sudden not operating at kind of 100% as throughout the team. It's operating at 75% because certain players are not doing or not carrying out the roles and responsibilities like they should be carrying them out. And that's why people have got to be, they can't be small-minded and think, I'm not going to be honest here because I'm frightened of losing my place. Listen, they can't be like that. You know, they're all in it. That result yesterday at Glossop, that result and that performance at Glossop yesterday, it wasn't just about those 11 lads on that pitch at that time.
No.
Or the 16, it was about not just the 16 on duty. It was also about the lads who were even at Ashton Athletic playing in the shadow squad, trying to get back to full fitness. Definitely. Because these lads, if they're mentally tuned in and understand, we're all in it together. We all train together. So if we all train together, they can see, like I can see, like the coaches can see, there's a lot of talent at the club and a lot of quality at the club. And it's because we've got that talent at the club and that quality at the club that what they've got to do is it pushes them on. So little do they know that Ashton Athletic, right, while they're blinking 40 mile away, right, up at Ashton, right, they know, the lads who were at blinking Glossop know full well that if they get fit, if I'm not on top of my game, they'll be pushing me out.
Yeah. So everybody has played their part.
So everybody's played their part. It's no good anybody thinking, you mean you look at, I'll give us another mention here, you know, I'll give Ben Langley a mention because Ben Langley, again, another player that's been unfortunate not starting the season. Ben Langley, let's talk Ben Langley. Ben Langley, all through the last 2 years, has been steady Eddie, our natural right back, right? And that's where he's been, and he's you know, if you analyse him
7 out of 10 every game.
Yeah, exactly. Steady Eddie's, you know, 7 out of 10. He's done well, right? He's done well. Pre-season, he's done well. He's trained every training session. He's not missed training. His stats are up there to prove it. He's done well. Yes, we you know, like other players have done in a couple of games. There's been a bit of a car crash in a couple of games. That happens. That hasn't, you know, changed anything about team selection. You know, the lad is a very, very good player and can play and adopt to other positions. Unfortunately, coming into this game, we've gone with a different kind of shape. So, you know, you and the other thing is, even though he can play in the shape that we've gone, I've got to look at it this way. In another couple of weeks, he's going on holiday.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's Ben's choice. It's in a season. You know, if we'd have kicked off at the right time when we should have done, it'd have been a kind of an height of a season. And any manager, what he wants is continuity. He needs continuity. You know, the injuries and suspensions are part of the game. You know, you're going to lose players. I mean, now we're playing on Saturdays in the shadow squad. It's going to be hard. Players have got to be careful on bookings because when we played in the midweek under-21 league, the bookings didn't count for the first team, right? Because it weren't classed as a Saturday league. Right. Now the shadow squad's playing on a Saturday. Then bookings are classed. So if they're picking bookings up in the shadow squad now, right? They'll soon hit 5 bookings, and you know, and they'll be suspended for the first team as well because
so they carry over.
So they carry over. It's a Saturday. Both playing on a Saturday, so it's classed as a Saturday league.
Yeah.
Right. So my point being, in some respects, from a player's point of view, or a player challenging a player's point of view, that's a good thing because if they think I'm never going to get in this team because he plays consistently well. Well, they might be getting in that team because they might soon hit 5 bookings. Because if they've played a couple of shadow squad games and picked a couple of bookings up, and they've played a couple of first team games and picked a couple of bookings up, they're soon on 5. They're into 4. You follow me? So they're soon going to go out the team. So my point being, what I'm trying to get at is, as a manager, we started the season, I want continuity. I don't want to try and, think, well, if I put him in, I'm gonna lose him in a couple of weeks. But there's an anomaly with that as well. I could put him in, being selfish, and wrap it, and because I know I'm going to lose him, and wrap. Let's say, for instance, the player who played ahead of him yesterday was Josh Walton. What I could have done, and very easily could have done, is I could have left Josh Walton on the bench and let Ben Langley play, knowing full well he's going away. And if he gets injured, it doesn't matter because he's going away. Whereas now I started Josh Walton, and if Josh Walton gets injured, I lose 2 players because I lose Josh Walton and I lose Ben.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate one, right? But then do I penalise Josh, who's trained well as well and done really well in training?
Yeah.
It's not easy being a manager,
No, not at all.
These are things you've got to think about. So if I start Josh Walton, right? If I do that, if I go with that mindset of the Ben Langley situation, where I think, well, Ben Langley's going away in 2 weeks, right? So I'll wrap Josh Walton up and leave him on the bench.
Yeah, as me safety blanket.
That's my safety blanket. But Josh Walton's really played well in pre-season and done really well. Yeah. It's kind of a kick in the bollocks
for all his hard work. Yeah.
For all his hard work. So it's a difficult one. And also as a manager, you want continuity. You want to start well, and you want to. I'm hoping now that when you felt the atmosphere at Glossop, that what happens. I'm hoping now that atmosphere and that comradeship and everything else will take us into the next game and carry us on.
Yeah, but based on the shape that you played yesterday, Brent. As you said, apart from them scoring the goal and you having to make changes, everything looked good.
It did, yeah. I agree.
Everything was fitting perfectly.
I agree, and this is why, listen, I don't want to reap over the past, but this is why players are players and shouldn't question what the manager or coaches are working towards or wanting to do, because there's a means to an end. The fact that we played different shapes with different personnel and putting people in, there's a reason behind that, and we wanted to look at it, and because it's a long hard season, and we wanted to look. Didn't mean to say, that we were going to go the way we went in certain games. Like we played a completely different. We played different personnel against Haywood St James's last week. We played a different shape in Haywood St James's last week. The result is immaterial.
Yeah.
In Haywood St James's last week. What were annoying last week was the way that the players didn't execute themselves last week. Doesn't matter what shape you play, they still got to be on top of the game, and they weren't. I used the word shrinking violet, and I had a reason for using that word. Now, that was nothing to do with team shape. That was to do with mentality. So there's a difference. So players, what I'm trying to say, should never question, again, I keep coming, man. I don't like repeating this because I have. I'm experienced. I've worked with top people. I've been in the top thing, and I know what I'm doing. Some of these players who were playing for me weren't even born when I started managing.
Yeah.
So, you know, and the game has a chance.
But when you look at yesterday's game, Brent, the mentality, as you were talking about from the previous game, was absolutely on the money by every single player.
Every player. Exactly. That's what I mean. And this is what, but you can't, look, it will get harder now. It's going to get harder. We know it's going to get harder. You know, one swallow does not make a summer.
No.
So we know it's going to get harder. And every time, if we go with, if our next game we have another positive result, it'll get harder again. And it goes on like that because everybody looks at you. I mean, at the minute, because we haven't been playing, everybody's looking at us anyway. Why is Baycup not? Why have they not played? Yeah. Everybody's still asking you who don't watch this show. Still ask the questions. You know, so they watch blinking at it. So now, as soon as we've played, which was our first competitive match yesterday, straight away everybody's linking. If we'd have gone to Glossop yesterday and got a trouncing, people would dismiss us. They weren't bothered about us.
Yeah.
The fact that we've gone to Glossop and we haven't played and we've done well at Glossop, they will look at us. They will go, hang on, they've still got a player yet. They'll be a threat. They'll be there or thereabouts. That's what they'll say.
Yeah, based on one game.
Based on one game, which is rubbish, because like I said to the players before the game yesterday, I reminded them about the start we had last year, which were positive. Yeah. Where did we finish?
Let's not talk about that.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, this is the annoying part. Last year's squad was full of good players, like this year's squad is.
Yeah.
But they've underachieved where they wanted to be.
It was mentality.
Mentality. But that mentality's got to change. If they want to do what I want them to do. I mean, I got a pelter thrown at me last week, and I don't mind bringing it on this show, right? Because I give somebody a load of stick on here last week, right? And I don't want to repeat it because it would drivel what he was saying and everything. And I'm not having a go at him on this show. We keep it positive.
No.
But one of the things which is the easiest thing to turn around and say, for somebody that's been in the game for over 40 years, why have you not taken Baycup Boro winning the league? Well, my first point I'd say to that is check the history of Baycup Boro Football Club. Check the history of Brent Peters, because Brent Peters did take Baycup Boro to winning the league. Brent Peters got Baycup Boro out of which is now the Premier League. He got, and it was then the First Division. So he's got Baycup Boro out of the First Division and took him into the Premier League. And for 8 years, we stayed in the Premier League and we were blinking worthy of the Premier League, right? Our highest position in the Premier League was 8th. Now, this is a club, right? This is a club, and not making no excuses here. This is a fact. This is a club with no money, right? I am bankrolling the club. Everything what the club's got is I'm putting in. So before, when we had a clubhouse that was functional, right, and we had a commercial arm that was underachieving, maybe, right, I would then look to my business and support the club the best I could. We're in a situation at the minute because obviously I can't do that because I'm supporting the club house because I need that, and that's a £300,000 project, right? So my point being, I ain't going to back the ranch when a top footballer, one of our footballers, right, and I'll use this example, Lewis Byrne came his first club he come to from amateur football was to Brent Peters at Baycup Boro Football Club, right? I nicknamed him the Wonder Kid, right? I paid him as much as I could afford to pay him. If supporters loved him that much and didn't want to see him leave, right, because he left, let's get one thing straight. He didn't leave because he didn't like Baycup Boro. He loves Baycup Boro, loves it. He's even said, even this last week, I will be back here one day, right? And he knows he'll be back here one day because he loves the club, right? Now then, I could not. It broke his heart, let me tell you, because we was on a call pre-season. I remember it, close season, sorry. I remember it as though it were yesterday, right? He hated the call he was going to make to me. He even said to me, I said, how are you, Lewis? I pulled my vehicle. I was out in a van this particular day. I pulled up at the side of the road. I said, how are you, pal? He said, I'm all right, Brent. How are you? Right? This is how the conversation went. I'm all right. How are you? I said, I'm good. I said, I'm good, thanks. He said, but I'm really, really hating this conversation I'm going to have now. Yeah. I went, oh, come on, Lewis. So he had made an offer with substantial amount of money, right? I'm sorry. I don't want to go in because it's none of my bit, it's another club's, right?
Yeah.
But he'd been made a substantial offer. I could have easily said, I will better that, not match it, better it. I know if I would have done that, he would have stayed where he were.
Yeah.
Right? Young lad, young family, everything, he would have stayed where he were. I couldn't. There has to be a line because he's one player. I've got to find money from not one player. I've got to find money for blinking 20 players in theory and staff. Right? The only coach that doesn't get anything, and that's because he's got a decent job and he just the way it is Nigel, which I respect that. Right? Everybody else gets money. Right? Whether we like it, don't like it, right? So it's a lot of money that has to come out of this club every week. A lot of money. Not as a collective. A simple exercise is this. If everybody got 50 quid expenses and you've 20 people on 50 quid expenses, work that out, right? That's what you have to find on a weekly basis, right? Simple as that. Now, if I have to pay a striker, as in that's going to win you a league, right? And a top defender, goalkeeper, let's say, that's going to win you the league because you've got one at the top end and one at the back end, right? Top money, more than what we can afford, right? At this point, right? We've got a problem because we're running the risk of losing the football club. The football club could go under, right? Because it's not one player. So what I'm trying to say is, if the supporters wanted Lewis Byrne to stay, could they not as a collective, and I'm just saying this, I'll tell you what, we'll sponsor as our little unit, we'll pay that every week. His money, it's nothing to do with the club, and we will pay that.
10, 15 quid each per week into a kitty, gives you a top-class striker.
Exactly. But no, and I'm not going to go and say to somebody, well, can you not do that?
No.
So I lose my striker. Breaks me out. So where are you going to find your next one? Because the next one you find, right? So you find your next one, right? What happens then is some club down the road that don't give or up the road or a blinking 7 mile away, like where I'm talking about, in blinking near Burnley, right? Yeah. They're throwing blinking money at it, so I've got no chance. So what we do, we get the players in we can afford and try and work with them, and hope that they get a bit of loyalty. And in this group have showed loyalty to me, for the last 5 or 6 years. They've shown great loyalty because they get looked after. And like I'm saying, there's a new build going on there. Once them tills, I knew who these players are, let me tell you. And once them tills are rattling, they'll be more than compensated, believe me, because I look after people that look after me.
Correct.
But the big issue is when you get some blinking person coming out with a blinking comment. I am not going to put Bacup Borough's coming up to 150-year-old. I am not putting Bacup Borough's future, 150-year future, in jeopardy for my personal get to say, look at my CV. I've done this. I've done that. I've done that. I've done that.
Out of all the work you've done, you'll be remembered for the manager that killed Bacup Borough.
It's madness, and a statement that comes out like that. At the end of the day, I've got a lot of pressure, right? Yeah. And I've got and the biggest thing that I'm saying is another one, Matty Bryan. We build a team round him. He scores an hat-trick against Blinking against Chadderton, right? 7 days coming from the big money people down Manchester. Bang! At some point, Brent, I've got to look after myself.
Yeah.
What do I do? So the answer to your question, Danny, is quite simple. I accept what you're saying, but I ain't back in the ranch just so you can't freaking throw pelters at me.
Yeah. And it's just a fact to laugh that clubs out there paying through the nose for quality players.
Yeah, but they'll get caught a cold because at the end of the day, you know, the Inland Revenue will catch them up and everything else, but that's none of my business. I'm just telling you there's a line I'll go to, and after that I can't go to.
Yeah. Finally, Brent, let's talk about, very quickly, as you said it before, we talked about it, Ashton Town, first league game of the season next Saturday. Looking forward to it. Eventually to get the league campaign.
Yeah, listen, I look forward to every game. I look forward to, but we've just talked about it. I've got some big challenges at the minute. You know, big challenges. I mean, I've got excellent coaching staff, and I've got to say this. I mean, especially Ryan Russell. I've got to say this is because there's that much going on with me at the minute. And trying to get that club open and keep everybody happy and keep the balls up in the air. One thing that I almost missed, and I don't miss anything, is obviously we signed, I'll give you an instance, we signed Ben Thompson he renewed his contract, but he hadn't signed the North West Counties form. He signed the contract, but he hadn't signed the registration form for North West Counties.
Yeah.
And because I'm bogged down with everything that's going on and my own business and everything else, I hadn't noticed that his name hadn't appeared on the blinking Northwest Counties list. But Ryan's been on the money. You know, he's been really good. You know, away from his coaching, he's been thorough, methodically thorough. And he's looked at it and he's rang me and he said, Ben Thompson's still not showing on this Northwest Counties. I went, you've got to be joking. So obviously it jolted my memory, jolted me, right? And I got it sorted. I mean, it was partly their fault because I had sent the return list in, so it should have been an automatic process, to be honest, right? Because I had sent that in. Because what happens is you sign a contract player, right? They won't register him, won't the Northwest Counties, until they get the receipt from the FA. Yeah. But if it's the player that's been offered a re-engagement or he's in his second year of a 2-year contract, he's already contracted.
Yeah.
So that should be automatic. But it wasn't. You know, they hadn't put it on. But I checked on it, but what I'm trying to say is if he hadn't been on the ball, Tomo would have ended up not playing yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So I've got to give, you know, credit where credit's due. I have a lot going on. We're limited with people around the place. We haven't got it. And he didn't need to do that, didn't Ryan Russell. He's done it, and he's done other things as well, and he's really helped me out, and I appreciate it.
Brilliant. Anything more to add, Brent, before we wrap up 231?
No, I'd just like to say, like I said, I think I touched on it before. We Toby Wright, you know. I mean, you know, I haven't spoke to him yet, so I don't know how he found it yesterday. I'm not bothered about the result. I mean, I think they got it. Lost Nara 3. Yeah. I think 3-2 actually. They lost 3-2. But listen, again, we were lucky to get, and I say this about everything. You only get out of anything what you put into it. And the other night, because we've got injuries, we've got people away, we really couldn't get 2 teams out. We couldn't have got a first team squad out and a shadow squad team out. So I had to kind of roll my sleeves up, put things to one side, what I needed to do, and between me, again, I'm going to mention Ryan Russell. Between me and Ryan Russell, very, very quickly, we had to get players in to make sure that there were enough players to go over to play at Ashton Athletic. And this is what I mean. You know, we need sooner rather than later, I need to get, but it has to be the right person we bring in, you know, to run this, because we've got some good young lads now at 16-year-old that are not playing football, and they need to be into our shadow squad group. I'm not saying they'll play every week because they're not physically ready, but this is what the shadow squad's for, to carry on their education. But we need somebody right to take them. We need somebody right to. They've got to fit the tick the boxes in at Bake Up Borough. How I want to do it. You know, I keep saying it. I take the template off a football league club. We just need somebody. I were hoping that, you know, it were made for Gareth Wager, but you know, I do respect.
Biting,
he's not biting at it, and it is a bit of a responsibility. But you know, we'll get there in the end. But I was just grateful to Toby for taking him on Saturday, and thanks for that, Toby. You know, that's a senior player for you, and that's good attitude in my opinion, and it means a lot. So there we go.
Absolutely. Enjoy your Sunday, Brent, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, top man. Thank you.